One of the secrets to be more productive is to mindfully design your day so you always have time for your most important tasks, rather than running around working on other people's priorities. In this video, I'll introduce you to the 4 strategies that you could choose from based on your type of work to cultivate the habit of deep work. So feel free to skip ahead to any of the sections if you like, but for now, let's just get started. Hey friend, and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Dan, and in this channel we explore the strategies and tools to become more effective and productive. If you're anything like me and you're always eager to learn more about productivity and performance, please consider subscribing to the channel. And now, let's continue with this video. Here's the reality. Most of us have good intentions when it comes to our days. Maybe we even plan them ahead of time. You get excited about everything that you are going to accomplish. But when you actually sit down to do the work, you find just how hard it is to focus on your most important task. Distractions come to you left and right. Emails, notifications, or colleagues making demands on your time. Or, even worse, you distract yourself by working on other not so important tasks. And this cycle repeats over and over again every single day. So how can you break it? The secret is to add smart routines and rituals to your working life. Design your days to minimize the amount of willpower needed to transition to a state of focus. In one of my favorite books about productivity, Deep Work by Cal Newport, he introduces the 4 strategies to make deep work a habit. So let's start with the first one, the Monastic Strategy. In this strategy, you cut all distractions and obligations and only focus on your most important tasks. In other words, you remove any extra work not related to your main projects. So this could mean weeks or months without answering emails or doing any paperwork. And a prime example of this strategy is Donald Knuth, a professor at Stanford University, an award-winning computer scientist. Back in 1990, he announced that he had completely retired from using email. In his words, email is a wonderful thing for people whose role in life is to be on top of things. But not for me. My role is to be on the bottom of things. What I do takes long hours of studying and uninterruptible concentration. So he decided that he would batch all his communications to be more efficient. And that meant only checking them for like 1 day every 6 months. By doing this, among other things, he was able to produce at an award-winning rate, making him a superstar in his field. And there have been a great many scientists, psychologists, authors, and individuals from every other occupation that have developed their best and more lasting work from a lifestyle of near total seclusion from the outside world. And this seclusion and cutting oneself away from all mundane activities is what the monastic philosophy is all about. This strategy is the most dedicated form of deep work and involves spending all your working hours on a singular high-level focus. And it has the highest potential for reward and the lowest level of context switching. But the downside is that it isn't really an option for most careers. Most of us can't just decide to not check email for 6 months at a time. So how do you know if this strategy is for you? Well, this strategy is best for people who work in fields in which success is strictly tied to the quality and quantity of the output. For example, scientists or authors, their success is defined by the number of papers or books they complete. So if that's you, it's probably a no-brainer that this strategy is for you. Alright, let's move on to the second strategy for deep work, which is the Bimodal Strategy. In the Bimodal Strategy, you split your schedule according to the depth of work. So you plan large, uninterrupted time blocks. The size can range from months to days, where you work like a monastic. And when this period is over, you only deal with shallow work. So let's talk about Carl Jung, the famous Swiss psychiatrist. Jung recognized the power of long periods of uninterrupted focus on his work. But unfortunately, his lifestyle was not compatible with the monastic deep work strategy. So his solution was to divide his time between Zurich and Bollingham. When in Zurich, he would not reject distractions, but actually encourage them. Here, Jung was a regular in coffee houses and lectures all over the city. But when he traveled to Bollingham, he saw intense and uninterrupted concentration. So much so that his family members would have to ring a bell from their neighboring house to alert him when a meal was ready. And this commitment to long periods of deep work enabled him to produce generational results. Now, of course, shifting towns every few months or so is not a luxury most of us can afford. But the idea here is to make the distinction between the deep and shallow spheres of your work and only operate in one sphere at a time. So when you engage in deep work, you engage 100%. When the period is over, you don't engage in deep work until the next period of time. And the great thing about this strategy is the flexibility. You can do large quantities of deep work and fit this into your schedule in a flexible way. This mode is especially useful to work on projects that need long days of uninterrupted concentration. When you adopt this idea to your work, the division of time between deep and open can happen on multiple scales. For example, on the scale of a week, you might dedicate a 2-day slot to depth and the rest to open time. Or maybe on the scale of a year, you might dedicate one season to contain most of your deep stretches. The key is to stay extra responsive whenever you are not in the deep work day. Doing this ensures your coworkers will respect the time you're away. Next up, we have the Rhythmic Strategy. Now, this strategy is fairly different compared to the first two. The underlying idea behind this philosophy is that the easiest way to consistently start deep work sessions is to transform them into a simple, regular habit. And this strategy is based on two fundamental ideas. First, that humans are creatures of habits. And second, that deep work is rarely performed if not scheduled. The best part about this strategy is that it's flexible enough to be accommodated into almost all schedules and jobs. Whether you are a university professor, consultant, or lawyer, this strategy is most likely something you can use in your life, and this is what I follow too. But beware, this strategy only works if you turn it into a habit. Whatever schedule you commit to, you need to deliver. Once you get going, your objective is to never skip a day. So here's the strategy that I follow. I use my mornings for deep work efforts, such as creating videos such as this one or writing articles. 3, 4, maybe 5 hours. And then in the afternoons, I can let the shallow work come in, like managing my website or editing videos or replying to emails. So all you need when you're following this strategy is consistent and uninterrupted time blocks each day. In most jobs, you should be able to take 3 to 4 hours of your day to tackle your main projects. But if that's not possible, early mornings or evenings are also great times to dedicate to deep work. The trick is to keep scheduling deep work periods for yourself until it becomes a habit. Now, let's move on to the last mode, which is the Journalistic Strategy. The main idea of the Journalistic Strategy is to fit deep work whenever possible. It works something like this. If you do not have any obligations to meet at the moment, use the extra time to tackle deep work. Instead of glazing over your emails, make progress in your projects. This strategy requires you to change from low-intensity tasks to deep work on a dime. And while very simple in theory, putting it into practice is very hard. But that's not to say that it hasn't been used effectively. For example, in the early 1980s, Walter Isaacson was tackling his most ambitious project yet, an 800-plus pages book about the Cold War. And he would work on this book even during summer vacations. Whenever he had the time, he would sneak into his room to write some paragraphs. After an hour of intense work, he would come back relaxed and ready to enjoy his holidays. Every time he was available, he took the time to write a bit. That was how Isaacson was able to accommodate his enormous side project with a day job in Time magazine. So even though this strategy seems very inviting and time efficient, it really only works for people who have a lot of experience with deep work. It's not the best place to start. If you're someone who is using this strategy, you need to be able to switch very fast between deep and shallow work. And this ability to switch between projects has everything to do with experience. You will be dealing with your most challenging projects minutes after responding to low-level emails. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And you will need confidence in your ability to generate output. You will get stuck and experience setbacks. And when that happens, it will be easy to quit without that confidence. Now, as you have learned about the 4 different strategies, you might have immediately realized which one works best for you. When you look at all 4 strategies together, of course the monastic schedule will give the best outputs. But for most of us, the bimodal or the rhythmic strategy are much more applicable. I follow the rhythmic strategy, and I find that it's the best place to start when it comes to bringing deep work into your life. So the goal of designing your work is to systematically schedule time to work on your most important tasks. To schedule blocks of time for focus first, with all other work happening around those blocks. When you design your work, you are proactive about your time. You schedule your priorities first rather than being reactive, meaning you're always running around working on other people's priorities. If you enjoy this video, you also like this one, where I talk about my favorite 7 time management techniques to effectively manage your time and get more done. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.